One of the sessions you did with this camera, you took it to a waterfall.
Yeah. I think that was in West Wales, and we were trying to get to this waterfall, which was the location that the lady chose. And on the way, there were several fallen trees, which we had to climb over with this.
Not just travelled in the UK, she's actually been elsewhere as well, I believe. She's got a passport.
I managed to get her to Paris, which was quite interesting. The story was that I did go to a women's refuge myself, and back then I could only take a few things with me, and one of those things was a Russian doll. So I was a mysterious Russian journalist that's now living in her village, and her name's Svetlana. So yeah, I thought that's a good kind of like myth and kind of story that I could apply to my doll. I got the grant for the project, and suddenly Russia started attacking Ukraine. And I thought, great, I've got a big Russian doll symbol. So I thought within the design to kind of show solidarity to Ukraine. So we've got the Ukrainian sort of scarf here.
Hello and welcome to Camera Central Podcast. Today I'm joined by this beautiful camera and Kristel Trow.
Hello.
So what is it that you do, Kristel?
I'm a fine art photographer.
You're a fine art photographer. What gave you the idea of this beautiful, beautiful device then?
It's a bit of a long story, and there's lots of things to it. I think my background, first of all, is fine art printmaking. And when I studied printmaking, part of that was to experiment with different ways of printing images. And so we did try pinhole photography and making sort of rudimentary cameras. So yeah, I got into sort of pinhole photography back in the day. So I kind of knew that you could turn objects into sort of camera obscuras and then capture the image from there. So that was kind of part of my background really, and how I began photography. And
well, it is solely unique, because like there's one thing talking about kind of like pinhole cameras and camera obscuras, but specifically using a Russian doll. Where did that idea come from?
Yeah, there's a bit of a deeper and darker story to that. So the project really is sort of a contrast of like the colourful stuff on the outside and also the deeper and darker things that come from inside the doll. So part of the story was that I did go to a women's refuge myself, and back then I could only take a few things with me, and one of those things was a Russian doll, so I was given that as a child. And suddenly I kind of saw this caricature as a way that women could be viewed and treated sometimes, like almost like a caricature of a woman, like femininity and fertility, and an object that could be picked up and put down. And I kind of thought about the idea of turning this object into like a proactive instrument, like a camera, to document things. But also because my background was art before my difficult experience, it kind of became like a self-portrait, as in me taking photos again. So it kind of came from there.
Fair enough. Well, you can see there is a lot kind of in the doll itself, especially with the red hair in particular. That, you know, so does that mean you've modelled it off of yourself then?
Yeah, I don't know what came first. I think the design, I think basically I got the grant for the project, and suddenly Russia started attacking Ukraine. And I thought, great, I've got a big Russian doll symbol. So I thought within the design to kind of show solidarity to Ukraine. So we've got the Ukrainian sort of scarf here. So the colour blue was going to be the scarf, and I thought orange worked well with that colour. So then I started colouring my hair to match the doll.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
So it kind of went the other way around then, did it?
Yeah, a bit of both. We've kind of influenced each other, so yeah.
Well, we were talking about it a little bit before we kind of like set up here. And kind of like, because the project's kind of, you know, focusing on abuse in particular. You know, I think, and it being a Russian doll, I think those kind of like match together quite well, I guess. What do you think? Yeah,
so I did... I think it was a project which combined an autobiographical thing of my own experience, but also then sharing multiple women's stories about resilience and recovery. And so I did choose to kind of work with Ukrainian women in that as well. So I documented a group of Ukrainian girls who painted their backdrop, and it was a portrait of Ukraine with the missiles. So yeah, it's a symbol of kind of, recovery and resilience and solidarity to Ukraine.
You did say yourself that you come from more of a fine art background, but you kind of went into photography. Has photography always been something for you, or is it something that you've kind of like evolved over time?
Yeah, I think so. I think, I did start a degree in photography and I dropped out like 3 weeks later because I found it quite prescriptive, as in we'd be given like specific briefs to do.
Yeah.
And I think I felt like I wanted something more creative, so I kind of dropped out and went to printmaking. But it was always more photographic based work that I did do, so it's kind of like screen printing and using my photographs to like etch from, or lithography I tried out as well, but it was all photographic based stuff, I suppose, thinking back.
What is the name of this beautiful person?
Svetlana, yeah.
So is there a story behind Svetlana?
So yeah, it means light, and I think on one of the photo shoots that I did do, I was speaking to a woman, and it was again around the time all the things were happening in Russia and Ukraine, which is obviously still ongoing. But she was saying there's a woman that's turned up from Russia and in the village that she's living in. All she knows is that she's a journalist, and this mysterious Russian journalist that's now living in her village, and her name is Svetlana. So yeah, I thought that's a good kind of like myth and kind of story that I could apply to my doll. And I like the fact it means light. So
yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it just matches up even more perfectly. Through us talking about, you know, doing this podcast, and you of course coming to Wales and West, one of the things we kind of like got into is the sort of like the mechanics of it, because this is something that you designed yourself, or did you have somebody help you design the photography?
No, I designed it myself, but it is based on the Afghan box camera.
Yeah.
So when I thought I wanted to turn that object into a camera, I started researching into the history of it, and also thinking about the fact that I wanted it to be a paper negative, because I wanted to produce like an image inside the belly of the thing, and kind of on site, because obviously I'd heard of different other processes like wet plate and all of that. But I thought if it's a paper negative, I can actually process it in the doll. So it got me looking into sort of ways of doing that, and I came across the Afghan box camera, and I quite like the fact that actually it's from quite a male dominated place, and I'm using that kind of process and turning it into something really feminine. But the inside of it actually is just like an Afghan box camera, which has got like a paper negative holder and viewfinder, and then ways of interacting to put that paper inside and then process it.
With this, like, what problems and issues have you had with taking photos with such a large and complex camera?
I don't know where to start with that. There's quite a few. I think one of the big ones was the temperature, which I didn't think about. Obviously, normally in a dark room, you'd kind of regulate the temperature of the chemicals for a good reason, because obviously, I suppose that's the science part of the process that came into play. So, for example, when I took a picture in a conservatory where it was very warm, as soon as I put the image into the developer, you can view, which by the way you can view the image developing through the back. It was kind of processing, so I had to quickly drop it into the next stage. So the warmer the chemicals, the quicker the process. And when it was really cold, it took ages. And so I think the temperature came into play. And it's quite a difficult process, because normally in a dark room you can actually see the trays are laid out for you. But here they're kind of in a system where I'd have to drop them one by one. And also, so sometimes cross-contamination would happen. So I'd have to be careful with how I sort of placed it and how I dropped it into the tray as well. So yeah, there was lots of things that made it difficult, and obviously the scale of it is it's 35k in weight, so it was quite tricky to manoeuvre.
In particular, I believe you've got a story where through one of the sessions you did with this camera, you took it to a waterfall.
I think that was in West Wales, and we were trying to get to this waterfall, which was the location that the lady chose, and on the way there were several fallen trees which we had to climb over with this. By the time we got there, the light was just hitting above where we needed to be. So that meant just really long sort of shutter speeds. It was kind of 9 seconds long in the end. And also it was freezing cold, so the waterfall itself was frozen, which meant it was taking ages to develop, and it was very contrasty. It was really interesting. It was a very different feel to the rest of the images I've got. But I thought, it took me ages to get to that point. I'm not going to come away without an image.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So we done it.
So
But
why
it was,
not do something easier? Why do that? You know, you could have picked somewhere else.
I think part of the process became I was meeting the women that were sharing these really personal stories. Location was really important to them. So they go into spaces that actually in most cases it's where they learnt to recover and heal.
Yeah.
So actually it was quite a positive thing,
Yeah.
but like a space that was an important part of that process for them.
Yeah.
So location was really important. So yeah, I think it was important to kind of honour their story and kind of share that moment with them in their place.
I think that's one of the things about it, because it's what you've done is you picked such a personal project in order to start off doing this.
Yeah.
I think going to the location and making sure that it's right is important for the project.
Yeah.
She's not just travelled in the UK. She's actually been elsewhere as well, I believe. She's got a passport.
I managed to get her to Paris,
Yeah.
which was quite interesting.
On a plane?
No, I looked into the plane, but no, we were on the Eurostar.
Okay.
And yeah, it was quite interesting because they had to put her through the X-ray machine,
Yeah.
which was quite funny, and all the staff thought it was hilarious. So they took her in half and put her through the X-ray. But yeah, it's because I'd documented all the other women in their special spaces.
Yeah.
I was trying to think for a self-portrait for myself, where would I go?
Yeah.
So my mum's from Paris. I've got all my family that live there. But also a huge influence to me was a lady called Simone de Beauvoir,
Yeah.
who's a sort of philosopher and feminist. And I went to a space that was quite important to her and not far from my mum, where my mum lived, and took my portrait there. So yeah, I went to Paris.
There you go, Paris with this. Beautiful thing. Have you got any more adventures planned for her, or is she just staying in one place for now?
We've got some things in the pipe works, so I think I'd like to develop the project, and I've mentioned to Charlotte Church about possibly doing a self-portrait series in her dream retreat.
Yeah.
So developing the self-portrait part of the project. And then I spoke to somebody who's in Vancouver about sort of doing things with the Indigenous sort of community there.
Yeah.
To try and develop that as well.
That would be massive.
That would be really
I feel
cool.
like she's going to have what a wonderful passport eventually. So of course you're going to be at Wales and West this year. What are you going to be talking about?
I'm going to be talking about Svetlana. It's all about her.
It's all about her.
So yeah, I think it'd be interesting to talk about the process a bit more.
Yeah.
So yeah, in addition to the technical side of the camera, I wanted to talk about the portraits that I took with it. So I did talk to some amazing women, which I'd like to share when I'm there. So yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So are you're excited to do your speech at Wales and West then?
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit. just a tiny little bit. Fair enough. How hard is it to take her around places?
It's quite difficult.
Yeah?
Yeah, I got used to it in the end. So I've got this lovely sack truck that kind of just sort of levers her up and sort of, and get about with it. I don't drive, so I had to use public transport a lot on my...
Which is crazy. When I heard that you don't drive, especially with the Paris thing, I was just like,
but she does...
that must have been a hell of a journey.
She comes in half, so I kind of like manoeuvred her in sort of
Well, you'd
two
expect
sections.
that from a Russian doll, to be fair.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, yeah. So yeah, but yeah, I kind of got used to it in the end, but I'm glad to be on a bit of a break at the moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough. Fair enough. So for anyone that's looking to do a project a little bit more personal to themselves, first of all, do you recommend photography as a way to do that project? And also where to get started?
Ooh, that's a good one. Definitely, I'd recommend photography. Or it can be, as you can see, it can be deeply personal. And I think photography, no matter how you approach it, it always is, because you're sharing that moment with that person. If you're photographing people,
Yeah.
so it's by default kind of personal, isn't it? And you're either sharing or creating that moment with somebody. Sorry, what was the other question?
Where to get started?
Where to get started? I would always recommend getting in a dark room, because I think for me that process is magic.
Yeah.
It kind of like you understand what's happening in the camera,
Yeah.
because it's such a physical kind of process, and you're more connected with the different parts that go on anyway within a camera. So I'd always say start in a dark room, personally.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
It's always good to start in the dark room. I feel like we need to revisit you at some time and actually do a project with you, because it'd be super fascinating, especially because we were like talking more about the sort of like the general mechanics of it. You've actually brought a lens here with you today, which is magnetically onto the front, fits magnetically onto the front.
Yeah.
It'd be really cool to actually come back and do something with you at some point. Yeah, I just really, I got to hand it to you. What you've done here is create such a beautiful statement in general.
Thank you so much.
And a really beautiful project with a really unique way of thinking about it.
Oh, thank you so much.
I absolutely love your work. We'll show some of the photos in the actual video.
Yeah.
Of course, it is film photography. So why did you choose film photography over using a digital camera?
I think, again, a big part of it is my background in art. I think a big influence in my thing is pop art.
Yeah.
But actually thinking about it, back in uni, I was more into sort of like Duchamp and kind of artists that use conceptual art.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you know Duchamp put a urinal in the art gallery and called it a sculpture. And I just like the humour. I like the conceptual idea of it.
Yeah.
But then developing that into kind of turn it into pop art.
Yeah.
So pop art, like using mass-produced objects and reinventing them.
Yeah.
And I like that idea in terms of engaging lots of people. I did get lots of people approaching me with this camera saying, oh, it's a Russian doll. And it's like, it's a good way of engaging somebody in and then saying, yeah, it's also a camera.
Well,
and this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think we had that experience when we actually took it down from your place, and one of your neighbours is just like, what's that? It's a big Russian doll. And you're like, well, it's a camera.
Yeah.
And it's just lovely to see the sort of like, you know, although you've got the deeper meaning to this, people's reaction to it are automatically different from, you know, it's a sort of like, it brings people joy to a certain extent.
Yes, that's what I love about that medium, is it kind of gets people in and people want to know more, and then you can go, oh yeah, it's also a camera and this is what we're doing type thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Amazing.
But, and also makes people smile, so it's kind of like the contrast between that and what else you can talk about as well. So
Yeah, fair enough. I hope you enjoyed the podcast, and please check out Kristel's work. It's beautiful, and please join us at Wales and West between the 19th and the 21st of June this year. If you like this video and you want to see some stuff about camera technology just in general, make sure you like, follow, subscribe, and if you want to see more, well, subscribe. I already said subscribe, haven't I, Tyler? Yeah, perfect. See you next time. Huh?